Good morning, Radiant Life Church, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for joining us today as we continue our sermon series on You Did It For Me. That's the title of our sermon series, You Did It For Me. I'm so glad that you could be a part of this journey with us. Again, thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your financial faithfulness in these times. We are moving forward as a church, and we're so thankful for your partnership. I want to continue today with You Did It For Me, and we started this series. This is week number 4 of the series. We started with a prelude, and we talked about those who are and those who are not. Those who are and those who are not. And I challenged us to think about what side are we on? Are we on the side of those who are or the side of those who are not? Because Jesus speaks, first week we talked, week 1, about those who are hungry. I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. Week 2, I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. Last week, week 3, I was a stranger and you invited me in. So let's just do a little quick review. Matthew 25:31 through 35 is where we've been. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in." And then today, I needed clothes, and you clothed me. Verse 36. We used this quote the very first week when we were talking about I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. It's a quote by Mother Teresa, and she said, when a poor person dies of hunger, it has not happened because God did not take care of him or her. It has happened because neither you nor I wanted to give that person what he or she needed. Neither you nor I wanted to give that person what they needed. You clothed me. Matthew 25:36, I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I want to go back to the book of Genesis chapter 3. And chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Genesis, we read, we see God at work. We see the creation of everything that's been made. And after God created everything, Genesis 1:27, I believe it is, says that when God looked at everything that he had made, he said, this is good. Humanity is the apex of creation. We were the last to be created. God saved the best for last. He saved man and woman for last. And what we see is God setting forth some guidelines, because when he had created man, he said, this isn't good that man is alone. Man is good, but it's not good that man is alone. So he created Eve. He created woman. And so that we wouldn't have to do life alone. Aren't you glad that we don't have to do life alone? That's a truth that we need to hear today, that we don't have to do life alone. We were never created. We were never meant to do life alone. Yet we live in a time, we live in a world where so many people feel alone. So many people feel like they're doing this all by themselves. And so I think that we need to be sensitive. We need to be aware of the needs that are presented around us. People that are hungry, people that are thirsty, people that are strangers that need to be invited in to our community, people that are without clothes that need clothes. And so I want to challenge us today just to be aware of the needs, because when we fail to meet the needs of others, we fail. We fail to minister to Jesus Christ himself. For he says, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. So in the very beginning of time, as God has created the heavens and the earth, as he's created everything out of nothing, he made everything, and he makes us. And he says, it's not good that you're alone. And then he lays out some guidelines for Adam and Eve. And he says to them, of all the trees in the garden, there's one tree that you need to stay away from. The day that you eat of that tree will be the day that you die. And that was the tree that they ran to. That was the tree that they ate from. And we see that God always fulfills his word. And after this decision, to disobey, came consequence, came sin. And that's what sin is. Sin is disobedience. And then after that came death, ultimately. And so we see something that is worth noting. It tells us in John 3:20 that everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. Let me say that again. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. And that's exactly what happens after Adam and Eve. They've been living, in the garden. All their needs have been taken care of, have been supplied. And they're naked. They don't have clothes. They don't have to worry about clothes. They don't have to worry about food. They don't have to worry about anything because God has worked everything out for them. Everything's taken care of. We have a God who takes care of things, a God who has us on his mind, and he's taking care of you and me. He's a God who can meet all of our needs. And he was meeting all of their needs, and they sin, they disobey, and immediately they realize something. For the very first time, they realize that they're naked and afraid. And so what do? They decide that they're going to hide in the garden, as if God doesn't know where they are. It tells us in the book of Hebrews 4 that God sees all, that God sees us. God's eyes are everywhere. He sees us and he knows us. And we can think in our minds that we're really hiding from God, but God knows where we are. God knows where you are today. And so God comes to them and he says, after he asks them the question, where are you? They're not where they're supposed to be. And maybe today we're not where we're supposed to be. God calls out your name. God calls out my name. And he says, where are you? Hiding. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And God says, come out from where you're hiding. And they realize that they're naked. That's why they were hiding. And God said, who told you that you were naked? Who are you listening to? And then this blame game, this blame shame game begins. Instead of taking personal responsibility, they begin to blame why they made this decision on somebody else rather than taking personal responsibility. Genesis 33:21 is just the key verse in this Old Testament passage. It says that the Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. God clothed them. I want you to notice something. God didn't call them out of hiding to shame them. God called them out of hiding so that he could cover them, so that they would not be shamed. That's why they were hiding. God made them clothes. God covered them. Jump ahead to the New Testament to John 19:23. And what we read here is when the soldiers crucified Jesus, they took his clothes. They took his clothes, and dividing them into 4 shares, one for each of them, with the undergarment remaining. This garment was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. One person said, Vernon McGee, he writes this: he was not covered up in order to maintain his dignity while dying on the tree. He was stripped and exposed so that even until the end, his atoning work would be seen as victorious, even over our sexuality and shame. He was crucified naked. 2 Corinthians 5:12 says, God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Did you hear that? He who had no sin, Jesus walked this planet, a perfect man, God, 100% God, 100% man, without sin, never sinned, God made him who had no sin to be sin. He became that for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Isn't that such a cool thought? Thinking about what Jesus became so that we could become. What did Jesus became sin so that we could become the righteousness of God? Wow. Jesus had to become sin. That's what he took on. He had no sin, became sin. And why did he become sin? So that we could become the righteousness of God. Galatians 3:13 says, Christ redeemed us. He redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. He became a curse for us. For it's written, cursed is everyone who's hung on a pole. If you go back to the book of Deuteronomy, you see in Deuteronomy 21:23, because anyone who is hung on a pole is under God's curse. So he became sin so that we could become the righteousness of God. So Colossians 3:12 through 14 says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion. Clothe yourselves with compassion. Clothe yourselves with kindness. Clothe yourselves with humility. Clothe yourselves with gentleness and patience. Bear with each other. Forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love. We need to be putting on love. Because you know what love does? Love binds all of these things that we just talked about. Compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Forgiveness. When we put on love, love binds all these together in perfect unity. What a great thought today, to go back to the book of Genesis and see that God didn't call people out of hiding so that he could shame them. He called them out so that he could cover them. And then we see Jesus Christ coming to earth as the bridge, as the reconciler, because of what happened in the book of Genesis, because of Adam and Eve and their sin, their disobedience, not taking responsibility, representing us all. Jesus Christ became the representative of us all. Through Adam, through one man came death for everybody. Through Jesus Christ came life for us all. And so Jesus bridged the gap between death and life. Jesus paid the price in full. Jesus took to the cross our sin, our guilt, our shame. And there he was hung on the cross, totally exposed, naked, vulnerable. Took it all to the cross so that we could be clothed. And so I'm reminded as I go back to Matthew chapter 25, verse 36, I needed clothes, and you clothed me. And so we are able to meet the physical needs of others, which I'm challenging us to do, people that are hungry, people that are thirsty, people that are alone, people that are strangers that need to be invited in, people that are without clothes. We all have extra clothes that we can give away, clothes that we're not wearing, clothes that we're not using. But then there's a spiritual piece of this. You know, we have a world that's hungry and thirsty and empty, longing for something more, longing for purpose, longing for peace, longing for somebody to do life with them. We clothe ourselves with Christ, and that's how we're able to meet the needs of others, physically, spiritually. Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, forgiveness, and then put on love. Put on love. Love is the key. Love is what's going to change this world. We need a revolution of love. 1 Peter 4:8 says, above all, love each other deeply. Love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. Did you hear that? Love each other deeply. Are we loving each other deeply? Are we putting on love? Are we loving each other deeply? Because when we're doing that, it's covering a multitude of sins. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish but will have everlasting life. It says in John 3:16. So what we know is that it was because of his love. His love ran red. Because of his love covers us. Everything that we've done in our past, everything that we'll do in our future, we have a Jesus who says, I've taken care of it. It's covered. You don't need to live in shame. You don't need to hide when you fail, when you fall. You can come out into the light. Yeah, it's maybe embarrassing. Maybe you feel the shame because it's being exposed, whatever it is that needs to be exposed. But we have a God who says, I've covered that. I've covered that because of the blood of my Son, Jesus. Your sin is covered. Your sin, though it be like scarlet, will be washed as white as snow. Amen. He did this for us. He did it for us. He, Jesus, became our covering. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. Aren't you glad today that we have a Jesus who clothes us? A Jesus who forgives us, a Jesus who has a plan and a purpose for our lives in spite of ourselves. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for joining us. I hope that this was an encouraging word for you to think about. And I pray that you continue to think about it, continue to say, God, what is it that you want to show me? What are you calling me out of so that you can lead me into something new, something different, something that you have in store, that you have in mind for me? Clothe me, O God, with yourself. Cover me with these things that we've read about today, with the compassion, with the kindness, with the patience, with the gentleness, and with love. I want to put on love so that a lot of stuff will be a lot of stuff will be worked out in our lives if we'll just love people the way that God has loved us, the way that God treats us. And so this whole series is causing us to think about our response to Jesus, our response to him, because the way that we do or do not respond, it's a response. And so I pray today that we will respond to the needs that are set before us, that we respond to the people that God places in our lives, and that by doing so, we will make the connection, we'll be able to connect the dots and realize that the way that I respond to the person in the grocery line, the way that I respond to my neighbor, the way that I respond to all those around me and all the needs around me, that's my response. That's your response. That's our response to Jesus. Have a great week. Look forward to seeing you soon. I know that our ladies had a great time yesterday gathering at Abby Smith's house, and just look forward to more times, more opportunities where we can just continue to gather, meet together, as some people give that up, and we're told in the book of Hebrews, don't give up meeting together. Some are in the habit of doing. So thank you for making this time on Sunday a priority, meeting together. That's what we're doing here online for our online faith community. And then some of us are going to meet. We're going to meet at the building in just a short period of time. And so just be praying for us as well. God bless you. Have a great week.